in the ocean, in the Atlantic, in Florida. I'm loving it. Which is weird, because I usually hate the ocean. I like lakes. I don't like the salt, I don't like the sand. But I'm loving this because I'm with my brothers. My younger brother, Paul, and my older brother, Chuck. We're about 30 yards from the shore, and we're, it's 7 or 8 feet deep, and we're treading water, and you know what it's like, right? When you're in the ocean, the water, you're kind of at its mercy, like it moves you around, right? And we're having a good time, and the surf wasn't rough. Every so often a wave would come in, and the three of us, our heads would go up and down together, and up and down. Okay, like you might think, big deal, like you're with your brothers in the water, who cares? No, but you don't get it, like, we don't hang out like that. My younger brother and I, we're close. We talk every couple of weeks, but our older brother, he is tough. He's I don't know, argumentative and opinionated and just difficult. But not that day. That was, it was different. It was different. Our mom had just died. Did I say it was 20 years ago, right? Our mom had just died about a week before that. And I don't know, to be with those guys like that, this was rare. And it felt like it was brotherhood. It's odd to say it, but it feels wimpy almost. But it meant a lot to me. I loved being with them. The next day, we went to Mom's apartment. We had to go through her stuff. And get the key from the landlord, go in, and immediately something's not right. Her place, it was kind of messy, trashed, and it was clear that it had been broken into. There was no sign of, there was no broken glass, the lock wasn't broken. Somebody got her key, let themselves in, and took some stuff and went through everything. And I don't know, have you ever been broken into before? It's creepy. You feel invaded, right? Okay, so we're there. My mom didn't have a lot of stuff that we wanted. For me, I got a bunch of photographs and some paintings that I liked. At one point, my younger brother Paul, he's on the floor in the living room, and in front of him is this chest of silverware, like a wooden chest about the size of a briefcase, and it's one of those chests that has like spaces for all the knives, forks, spoons. Except this silverware, and by the way, it was brass. It was kind of an odd thing. And I remember my mom bought it at an antique shop. Unusual, not that expensive. Anyway, it wasn't put away in the case. It was like this pile of silverware. And I guess the thieves had left it that way. And so Paul, says, looks at Chuck, do you want it? No, Chuck doesn't want it. He asks me, do I want it? Mm-hmm. And Paul doesn't want it. And so Paul closes the case, and he's bending the silverware. And I'm starting to cringe. And then he puts all of his weight on it, and he's mashing it down, like making it into a pancake. And I'm like, what are you doing? Don't bend it. Somebody made that stuff. It was nice. I like that. Like somebody might want it, and Mom liked it. Well, it's just so wrong. It's wrong. But it was right. I knew exactly what he was doing. And so did Chuck, and we all kind of laughed about it, like, get rid of this stuff. Like, we don't want most of this stuff, and it was weird to be in the apartment without Mom, and weird to go through her stuff, and it's strange that the thieves had been there. Like, let's just get out of here as fast as possible. The next day, we went to, Mom had a store where she sold clothes, women's clothes. So we had to take care of that, and we found a company that would clean out the store, sell the clothes, sell anything from her apartment that we didn't want, furniture, and anything extra money they would send to us, but we didn't think much of it. So I fly back to California, Paul flies back to New York, and our brother Chuck, he lived down there. About a month after that, I get an email from a woman named Terry, who is, she was a girlfriend of my brother's. And she tells me that Chuck reached out to her and asked for her help selling clothing from the store. Like they had sort of a going out of business sale, and they made $5,000. Okay, so I contacted Chuck and I said, Chuck, I heard from Terry that you sold a bunch of clothing. It's like, yeah, I thought we could sell and do better than that company we found. Well, okay, were you planning on sharing this with Paul and myself? No, you guys didn't do the work. I was there and I paid Terry for a day's work. No. Chuck, I don't know, I don't like the sound of that. It just doesn't feel right. I don't care what you feel. I did the work. I'm keeping the money. Screw you. I knew Chuck could get like this. Like Chuck would just get stuff in his mind and fuck the rest of you. I'm doing what I want to do. And, he's my older brother. He's a year and a half older. My bigger brother. I learned as a kid, if I'm gonna put my foot down, it would be a fight, and it probably wouldn't be fun for me. But then I was like, wait a minute, this is not right. I can't let him do this to me the rest of my life. This is not right. And so I said something to my uncle, who was the executor, and he agreed. He thought this should. He contacted Chuck, and Chuck flipped out. Chuck hit the roof. He was enraged in a way I had never seen before. It was months of emails. He didn't want to talk about it. He wanted everything in writing, as if it was going to be a legal case. And as the emails went on, it was just, okay, they eventually became, all of his emails were in capital letters, like he was yelling at us. And it got to the point he was saying to me, you better watch out, I'm going to come and get you for this. Look over your shoulder. And to my uncle, I never liked your side of the family. I always thought you guys were weak and effeminate. Just the strangest. He was losing it. But again, it was like I'd seen him in this, almost an automatic pilot. I learned later that it's really common for when a parent dies, for siblings to have a big fight. At the time, I didn't know that. And I thought Chuck was, he was caught up in his own thing. And as I saw it getting more and more crazy, I regretted what I did. I regretted saying anything about it. And looking back, I was caught up in it in my own thing. I mean, I remember when we were little, after some fight that he and I had, that my mom got us together and she said, why can't you kill each other with kindness? Right? Be the bigger man. Oh, man. At that time, that was the furthest thing from my mind. I was in it just the same way Chuck was. That was 20 years ago. And I've never spoken to him since. Over the years, I would Google him. Chuck was a libertarian. And I would see on these like forums and chat groups, people writing things like, watch out for this guy, stay away from him, he's threatening, he's potentially dangerous, not worth your time. And I'm thinking, this is awful. Like, it's one thing like to feel it personally and it be in your family, but this is like public information about my brother. It was embarrassing, it's sad. And at the same time, I'm like, that's my brother, you pegged him, I know that guy. On July 4th, this past, 2018, I wake up, sunny morning, it's Independence Day, federal holiday. I have breakfast, and I get a message on Facebook from Laura. You don't know me, but I was close with your brother Chuck, and I'm sorry to tell you, but he died in the hospital this morning of complications from untreated diabetes. Now Chuck had kind of died for me 20 years ago. In a way, I like packaged him up and put him on a shelf, just out of my mind. That is my strange brother. But no, this was the real thing. This is final. Like, never were we going to get in the ocean together like that. I talked to Laura for about 20 minutes on the phone that day. It turns out she had dated Chuck about 8 years ago for a few years. They lived together at her place in Michigan. And then he left her, traveled around the country, and I forgot to say, at the beginning of the conversation with Laura, within like 30 seconds, she asked me if I was a Christian. And throughout the conversation, like, made references to the Lord. Okay, so she and Chuck split up, and then about 2 years ago, she heard that Chuck wasn't doing too well. And she heard that, okay, he was living in the Texas Panhandle, in the middle of nowhere, all alone, no money, no car, and his health was declining. She invited him to live with her at her place in Michigan. Not to get together as lovers, just, come live with me, which he did. She also told me that when she and Chuck were going out, Chuck became water baptized, which I had kind of heard inklings of this, reading about him on Google, but this was true facts from Laura. And this was very challenging for me to understand. So Chuck and I were close for a couple of years in high school. And at that time, Chuck was like energetically anti-religious. Like if he knew you were the slightest bit interested in God or anything to do with spirituality, he would jump down your throat, and prove to you, be rational. God doesn't exist. It's all a myth. You're a fool for being interested. I mean, almost like physically threatening. So to hear that he was water baptized, I also received a message also on Facebook, from Jason, who was Laura's son-in-law. Very nice, like, condolence message. And I spoke with Jason. Like, I wanted to kind of learn, who is my brother? Or who was he the past few years? And Jason also asked me if I was a Christian. And Jason told me how Chuck would walk around with a smile on his face, quoting from Scripture, teaching Jason about Jesus. And it's confusing to me. I mean, he and I were bar mitzvahed. And our family was never religious, but like I said, Chuck was, I mean, he flipped. Jason went on to tell me Chuck really liked baseball, which I knew, and that he described how they would play cards a lot. Laura and Chuck and Jason and his wife, they would sit at a card table and play like whist and gin rummy. And I'm listening to this. Yeah, nice conversation, but I'm thinking to myself, you fuck, Chuck, how could you do this? How could you just turn into some other person, like completely ignore us and our family and hang out with these folks? Like, I don't even know who you are. How could you do that? I know that's not fair, right? Like people are entitled to be happy. You know, that's a good thing, but you know, it was just upsetting knowing that he left us and he left me, and I missed him. I miss him. About a week after I first heard from Laura, I got back on the phone with her. And she told me that Chuck has a son, had a biological son, has a son. He's 26 years old. His name is Marcus. And Laura knew the story. Chuck and Marcus's mom got together, and a few months before before Marcus was born, they split up with an agreement that Chuck would not be involved in raising Marcus at all or supporting him financially. They were both libertarians. And they even signed a contract saying that Chuck would not be involved, which to me sounds like something libertarians might do. I reached out to Marcus on Facebook. I wrote, I don't want to invade your privacy, but I just learned that you are my nephew, and your father, my brother, I wanted to tell you, he died a week ago. And Marcus messaged me right back, and we spoke that night. This is like mid-July, and we spoke for about an hour and had a great conversation. Like 26 years old, he was just so calm and warm and easy to talk to, smart. I just had this huge smile on my face. And I think he did too, kind of learning about Chuck. So when Marcus turned 18, Chuck reached out to him and wanted to, have a relationship with him. But Marcus had heard from his mom that Chuck was kind of troublesome. And also Marcus Googled and found the same stuff that I found and just decided not, keep him at bay. Anyway, Marcus and I, had this conversation, and we agreed that we would, stay in touch. And then about a month ago, he lives in Southern California. So a month ago, he came up and visited us. Sunday afternoon, we had lunch, and it was just wonderful. It was, he stayed for 4 hours, and the uncanny thing is how much he looked like Chuck at that age. Like, Marcus is broad-shouldered, and he's got black hair, and he's got this like wisp of a beard and mustache. And I'm trying to understand, wait, this isn't Chuck, but he looks a lot like Chuck. But meanwhile, he is so many things that Chuck barely had. Like I said, he was just warm and smart and present and focused and centered. And I've just got this huge smile on my face, like, all right, I lost my brother and I found this like new, nephew. He met my wife and daughter, and he has a lot in common with my daughter. They're first cousins, but they went to the same college at the same time. They have friends in common. Anyway, we left it that we want to spend time, and we plan on getting together in the future.